Hi, I'm Judy from Fox Cities Quilt Company, and this is Sunday from the Sewing Room, where we give you some tricks and some tips and a few tutorials to help you with your sewing and quilting projects. And today I am going to make another fun Shannon project. I do a lot of Shannon Cuddle. It's just so yummy. And it's one of my favorite things to do. Out of all of the Shannon products and projects I've ever done, of the Cuddle projects, this one is my favorite because it's short seams, it's easy to do, and you get a great project in under 2 hours. And so today I'm going to show you how to make this Shannon Cuddle ottoman. It is tufted. You can see the back, and here's the front. And it is, again, it's super easy to make. It's a really cool, interesting shape. And I just absolutely love it. And I'm going to show you how I did that. For this project, I'm going to use two 24.5 inch squares of Cuddle fabric. I am using the Luxe Cuddle hide, and this one is called Bessie. It's so cute, and it's non-directional. So if you're going to use a cuddle that's directional, you'll need more fabric. I am also going to use my flathead pins, and today I'm going to use them in conjunction with my Wonder Clips. You need a 10-inch piece of grosgrain ribbon, a 1 inch wide. And for this, I just cut up a piece of ribbon that was around a fat quarter bundle and a 2.5 inch button. I thought the red button would be cute on this black and white. And then I'm also, just in case, because we're going to do some weird corners to do some flipping, I am going to use my little stylus to help keep things nice and flat. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to mark the back of my Cuddle fabric. And I have marked it exactly in the center so that you can see that that is marked exactly in the center, and I put a little dot in the middle. So this is four 12.5 inch segments. If you have a 12.5 inch square ruler, you can certainly use that. The other thing that I want to do, and I marked this in red so that you could see it, is I want to make a 1/2 inch point from the corner on each and every corner. This one I marked wrong, so this is my 1/2 inch. And then a 1/2 inch here, and I marked it in red so that I could see it. And then a 1/2 inch on this corner as well. And then it's really hard to see on this black, but there's a 1/2 inch mark away from that seam, and I'm probably going to mark that a little bit better. And then there's a 1/2 inch mark away from that center line that's going all the way across there, if you can see that. Let me go ahead and mark this one a little bit better so that you can see it, because these markings are really actually very important. So I just laid a ruler on there, and see, there's my 1/2 inch mark. And I'm going to come along here and I'm going to put another darker dot there so that I could see that. And I'm going to prepare both pieces in that same manner. So now I'm at my sewing machine, and I'm going to take that 10-inch piece of ribbon that I have, and I'm going to make a loop. And I'm just going to loop this in two, and I'm just going to sew this back and forth. And I'm going to sew it well and backstitch because I want to make sure that that is secure. If you want it even more secure, I recommend making a box for it. So let me see if I can sew that and not get in your way. Okay, and then I'm going to backstitch on there. And then I'm going to turn it a little bit like this so that I can go across here. And I'm going to backstitch again, because you really do want to make this secure, because this is what's going to make your poof. So I'm going to go this way now. I don't know if this is exactly kind of a box, but it's more like a zigzag, but it will be secure. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to attach that loop to that very center mark in the center of one of my pieces of Cuddle, just right there. If you can see that mark right there, that's where I'm going to attach this loop. And it doesn't matter which way it goes, but you definitely want to get it on there so that it's nice and secure. And I'm going to go ahead and go back and forth on there. I'm going to go a couple of times because I really want that to be secure. And then I'm just going to go this way just a little bit. I'm not going to worry that that's going to show up in my fabric because it's going to get covered by a button, and that will work just fine. And I'm going to go this way a hair and give this a slight turn and sew that down. Because because we're going to stuff this, you really want it to be secure. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that. So as you can see now that this is nice and secure in the center of that cuddle, let me show you what it looks like on the back side. And you can barely even see that in there. Let me flip this back over, because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get some of my things out of the way here. And I am going to put this way. And of course, we're going to go right sides together. But here's the interesting part. I'm going to start halfway up this piece of cuddle. And I want to pin this 1/2-inch dot so that it lines up with this 1/2-inch dot at the center. So you really do want to pin that, and you want to pin it well. And so let me see if I can get this lined up so that you can see it. So my 1/2-inch dot to my 1/2-inch dot. And I want to make sure that I got that in there. Oop, not quite. I'll move that. That's really pretty good. I don't know if you could see that. So there. And right into there. So it's really important that I start here, and I'm going to backstitch, because these are the funny points that you're going to get on this cuddle ottoman, and they take a lot of stress because you're going to stuff them. And then I want to line this one up as well with this 1/2-inch line right here. So this should be lined up as well. I always try and get this out of the camera view because and then I end up not getting it so that you can see it. So that has to go in there, and it has to really make sure that I can get this for you. Line up really well. Let me pin that. That's some terrible pinning I'm doing here. Let me try this again so that you can see it. So we have this one lined up front and back, okay? And then let's try this again and look at my ink bled through, so that you'd think that that would make it a little bit easier for me. And let's get this nice and flat. And right here to the other side. And that one I did really well, okay? So let me get this in the camera, and then we're going to pin that. And again, this has to be lined up pretty good. So that's my start. So this is my start point in the middle of the cuddle. Let me pull this so you can see it. And then this is my stop point. So you have half of your piece of cuddle sticking out the top here, and half of it sticking out the bottom down here. And then you want to pin this so that it's nice and flat. So this is where I use the Wonder Clips in conjunction with my flathead pins, so that I can get this really lined up really nice and flat. Let me make sure that I got that for you. And I'm still a little crooked here. We get everything worked out. There we go. I'm trying to get this into the camera shot for you and lined up well. Okay, so I'm going to clip it there. I'm going to clip it here. And another clip would be good up here. And in between those binder clips, I am going to put a flathead pin so that this does not move on me. So that's nice and flat. And there. And there. So I'm going to take this to my sewing machine, and I am going to sew from here down to here, taking a back stitch at each end. All right, I have this under my sewing machine, and I have set up my sewing machine so that I have my walking foot on. I have polyester thread in, and I've lengthened my stitches to, it looks like 4 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and start here, which is a 1/2 inch in, and I'm going to pull that pin out. And then I want to take a back stitch, and I'm going to take one more back stitch, and then using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, I'm going to keep sewing down, pulling my pins and my clips out as I go. And just a little bit further. I like doing this because it's such a short seam, only 12.5 or 12.25 inches actually. And so the possibility of messing this up is half as much. So I'm going to keep going down here. And then where this pin is, and I'm going to take a back stitch, and I'm going to go to the end, and I'm going to clip that off. Okay, so I want to show you that I have this seam now, and I have a 1/2 inch from the end here, and I've sewn halfway down to this halfway point mark on the top piece, and I have a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. So now I want to turn this, and I'm going to clip this. Let me grab my scissors, so that I'm going to clip right onto this line, so that I can, let me show you how I'm doing this. Just clip, and you don't want to clip into your stitches, so that I can now turn this, and then I'm going to go and sew down the other half to the center. So see how that turned really nicely? So what I'm going to do is, let me flip this around so you can kind of see it. Okay, so now we have a corner here. And this gets, again, taken down to this halfway mark, and there's your other dot on your other side. So we're going to pin this so that these dots meet, and see how that will line up nice, just like that. And so let me go ahead and pin this quick, because you really want to pin this well. And did I hit that other mark? Not quite. I got to hit this other mark on the back. There it is. So I want to pin here and into here so it's nice and straight. And that's pretty good. Let me just repin it because I don't have this part straight. And as you can see, I'm taking care in how I'm pinning this, because I want it to be right on right there. So that's my target. Right here is where this pin is. So now I'm going to straighten this all out again. And let me move this. There's a lot of twisting and turning with this. But I like it because it's just short seams. So now that's lying nice and flat. So we're going to go, and I'm going to put some binder clips on here. I think I just need 3 or 4. And one more. I'm going to put one more in here. And I want to make sure this is nice and flat. Oop, got to pull that straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin in between the binder clips. Or I always call them binder clips. They're wonder clips. That's better pinning. And then I'm going to make sure that I sew from this target point, 1/2 inch seam allowance to this target point, and then I'm going to stitch back and forth. And I'm going to do this all the way around until I get to, we're going to count up to 6. You're going to end up doing it 8 times. Well, we're going to do this 6 times. And I'm going to show you what that looks like after I sew it 6 times. Otherwise, it's going to look so boring for you. And I'll meet you right back here. Okay, I thought I better stop after seam 2. I said 6, but remember, this is seam 1 from here to here, and then I clip this. But I forgot to tell you, you need to clip each time that you're going to make that pivot. So here, I'm going to clip right here on that mark, and don't clip into your seams, so that I can pivot this again and do the target with the dots. And let me make sure that I can do that for you. It gets a little bit easier after each time you go. Look at that. And then I'm going to pin that. And then again, I'm going to clip on this short edge and sew from this corner, take a back stitch to this corner, and then we will clip this again and do another turn. Okay, so I want to quick review what I've done here. So remember, we started with 1/2 out and 1/2 down on our cuddle right sides together. I pinned one at the 1/2 inch dots, and then I backspaced. And so then I sewed all the way down to the bottom corner. Then I clipped, you can see where I clipped here, because you always clip the long pieces of fabric. And then I pinned to the next corner. And then I clipped again on this side, and I sewed down. So that's seam number 3. Then I clipped this side and sewed down, and that's seam number 4. Then I also clipped this side. You can see where I've clipped and sewed down, and that is seam number 5. I clipped here and I sewed down, and this is seam number 6. And now you can kind of see I'm starting to get a shape. So, and you know, you can see how I'm going to kind of stuff this. But before I do that, before I get this too closed up, you remember this loop here? Well, we have to attach it to the other side. And so this is where it gets a little bit funky. And you may want to open up your machine to your free arm. But we have to bring this piece all the way around to the other piece, and we're going to sew it right there. Now, I'm going to pin this, and I'm going to take it to my machine. It does get, like I said, it gets a little bit funky, but this is how you make that tuft. So again, we have 6 sides sewed, or 6 seams, and I don't want to do the 7th and 8th yet until I bring this piece around. So it's on this side, and I'm going to bring it over to this side, and I'm going to pin this here so you can kind of see what I'm going to do here. Let's see if I can find my pins. I think they're all the way over on my sewing machine. So I want to pin this down right on that line, right on the center. And I'm going to pin it again this way. So you gotta, it does get really weird to sew, and it may even be easier to hand sew it, but I am going to sew it with my machine because, quite honestly, I hand sewing is not my thing. So I've made kind of an X in here, and I'm going to take it to my machine, and I'm going to take my free arm off, and then I'm going to sew this on here, and I'll come right back to you. Okay, so my loop is attached. It's attached from one side to the other. It's not pretty, but it's on there. So now I'm going to go back to sewing. And now I can go ahead and finish sewing from here to here. This would be side number 7, but I have to clip here. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this right there. See where that line is? Get that clipped. So sometimes you're clipping on the top and sometimes you're clipping on the back. It depends on which way your fabric folds. You'll get the hang of it, and you'll see immediately how that's going to work out. And then I'm going to, again, take this down so that I am pinning at my 1/2 inch marks. Let me pin there. And let's see how I did. Oh, that's pretty darn good. That's the best one I've done yet. And then I'm going to, let me lay this flat so that you can see that that lines up nice and flat. And I'm going to go ahead and put my binder clips on there. And another one. I love this pillow. This is, or this ottoman. It's called the ottoman, but I can absolutely see this as a fun gift for a teenage girl or a little kid that they can romp around in and in their room. This is one of my favorite Shannon fabric projects, because the seams are short and it's pretty forgiving. As long as you make sure that you backstitch on those corners, because you are going to be pushing on them. It's a really simple project to do, and it's a really good way to get familiar with sewing with Shannon Cuttle. And I'm going to pin there. Okay, and see, that's nice and flat, and I'm going to take that to my sewing machine, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to do that last, that's the 8th seam. Okay, so that was seam number 7, and let me pull those pins out for you. Okay, and now I backstitched here, and it's on backstitched there, and now I am on seam number 7. So this side is already clipped. You see how that's laying flat? So this side is already clipped, but it's this side that's not going to lay flat. So now I need to clip this here. I'm going to clip it right there so that that will lay flat, and see how that lays nice and flat once I do that. But before I sew this seam, don't forget, you have to leave room to turn this. So what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew a 1/2 inch seam here, not sewing this together, and a 1/2 inch here, because when I turn this, I want something to be able to stitch to when I turn it. So I'm going to take you to the sewing machine and show you what I mean by that. Okay, so I'm going to try and do this one-handed. So what I want to do is just on one piece of fabric, I just want to sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm just going to walk this all the way down to this edge. Let's see if I can do this one-handed for you while I hold the camera with the other. And the reason I do that is so that I have a good stable base to turn. And let me clip that. And then I want to do this side too. And I'm going to stick that under there at a 1/2 inch. And I know it's a 1/2 inch because that's my 1/2 inch. And I'm going to go ahead and sew that down. And the reason I do that, again, is because it will give it a nice solid turn, and it will flatten out nice and even. Okay, I'm ready to sew that very last seam, and what I've done is I've pinned along that seam line that I had sewn earlier. Remember when it was each just one piece of fabric? And I want to sew about out to here, and then I'm going to pivot out, because then what I'm going to do is I have to sew the other end. But remember, we want to leave a hole to turn. So I'm going to start here, try and get my hand out of the way, and I'm going to sew down, and then I'm going to take my pin out and I'm going to back stitch because I want that to be nice and strong, and I'm going to pin or sew down to about there. I'm going to leave my needle down, and then I'm going to pivot and go out this way. And that will help me turn it really nicely. And now I'm going to do the same with this side, only what I have to do is start from the end. Let me see if I can get out of your way here. Camera angles are kind of hard sometimes, but we'll get there so we can show you how this works. So now I'm going to start here. I'm going to sew, see if you can see that, to that seam line, leave my needle down, and then I'm going to turn it and sew out to the end. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a back stitch at that point. I'm going to take another one because that's my last one. All right, so now here's our project, and I'm ready to turn it right side out. I'm always excited when I get to turn a project right side out because that's where the magic is, right? And once I turn this right side out, you will see where the tuft comes into play and where all of those great points are. So let me get this turned, and I want to make sure that I'm pushing those corners out. See, I've pushed that corner out, so that's corner number 1. Here's corner number 2. Oops, see, now I didn't get that. So now's my chance to go ahead and correct that. And I'm going to pop it over to the sewing machine so I don't have a hole there. So I will be right back to you. All right, so yep, I do make mistakes. So I popped that over to my sewing machine, and now that hole is out. And there's another one. There's another great corner. And another one. And there's another corner. And all of these corners are now good. So now you can kind of see how this looks. Let me find the top. It's just so much fun. And where is my opening is down here. And I'm going to go ahead and stuff this. And so here is where my ribbon is, so that it will be tufted. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm probably going to put the button on first because that will be way easier to do before I stuff it. And I'm going to put the button on right here. I'm going to quick hand sew that down, and then I will show you what that looks like. All right, so now I have my red button on. I love the red button on here. I just think it's just so much fun. And it says, the directions say to use a 20-ounce bag of polyfill. I have 32 ounces here, and I'm going to go ahead and stuff this pillow, and because I would like mine super poofy, and this is kind of the premium polyfill, so it's a little squishier. So let's see how that looks. Okay, so I have my ottoman all stuffed. It is super cute. I do love the red button on there, and I love that it's just super tufted. And that's the back, and this is the front. And you can see how poofy this is. I did use all 32 ounces of that stuffing, and now I am ready. Let me see if I can get that up to the camera. I am ready to just slip stitch this closed. And that was it. It was so much fun. So if you just want to do this, it was literally from cutting to marking to stuffing under a 2-hour project, and it is so darn cute. This is Judy from Fox Cities Quilt Company, Sunday from the Sewing Room. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.